Hello, everybody. Uh, we're here to talk about Layout Builder in the real world. So this is Matthew Tift. He's all right, but I'm Wes Ruvalcaba, and I'm a senior front end developer, and Matt's a senior developer. That means he's a real developer, not like us fake ones. So we work for Lullabot, who's awesome, and you could work with us. We do strategy, design, and Drupal development, and you could see this wonderful mug in meetings. If that's not enough to sell you, I don't know what is.
And by the way, it kind of looks like it's maybe just the two of us at Lullabot, but it's not. There's a lot more people, especially for this next slide.
Oh, yeah, and also this. All right. So yeah, we're going to talk about what Layout Builder is, the goals for our project, where we built it, and we're going to do some demos and talk about the customization we made, and give you a wonderful list of all the stuff we used. So, what is Layout Builder? Layout Builder is in Drupal 8 core now. I'm just realizing I don't have my speaker notes, but it's in Drupal 8 core now. It is a WYSIWYG to build custom pages using drag and drop interface instead of using lots of templates and all those kinds of things. So here's a quick demo of kind of what it looks like in fast mode. So you can add all sorts of things to it. It's not just the fields from your node or just things that are there's actually too many things that you can add to it, and so we had to pare down the list so you didn't get overwhelmed. So when we started Lullabot.com, Layout Builder was pretty new. We were originally planning on using paragraphs just to accomplish some of our fancier pages like home, about, contact. And then Layout Builder was starting to solidify, and we were like, this might work. And the goal was to empower our marketing person who isn't a developer, isn't a technical kind of person, so that she can build pages on her own without having to wait on us, because we have to do this project in our free time. This isn't something that we have a dedicated developer for. So the goal was that she could build a very cool page with lots of styling, not just something boring looking, with as little help from us as possible. Oh yeah, there's that slide. Matthew.
All right. So yeah, this was the, I think, like 7th or 8th iteration of Lullabot.com, and we previously had a decoupled site that was built, I think, in 2015. It was one of the first I've heard people say it's one of the sort of first Drupal sites with a React decoupled front end. But when you have a decoupled site, you can't take advantage of some of the cool things that Drupal offers, including Layout Builder. And so when we started working on this, we ended up actually making a page on our website. So if you go to lullabot.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a link that says how we built this site. And so, it's kind of a meta kind of thing here. And actually, that is the actual lullabot.com, so I don't want to mess with that. So yeah, there's this link that tells more information about some of the things that I'm talking about, and some of the modules we use, some of the modules we contributed. And I actually, I want to make clear too that I have worked quite a bit on lullabot.com over the years, but I didn't actually work on this iteration of the site. So when I say we, I don't mean me. However, the reason I am here today is because I have used what we have done on lullabot.com on client sites, and I have found it to be tremendously useful. I have realized that this is something that people have been talking about for years. So if you've been around Drupal, I don't want to assume you have, but if you have, this is something that is in Drupal core now that does the kind of things that people were doing before with things like display suite or panels or panelizers or lots of other different solutions. And this one seems particularly cool, and it also seems like there's some momentum around it. And having used it now, I'm really excited about it, and I've been able to talk a lot with the people who made it and use these modules and implement them. And that's why I'm here today, is because I'm actually using it in the real world as well.
I found some of my notes. So, as a developer working, so the benefits as an editor, you can see from that video, it's pretty clear. It's pretty cool that you can drag things around, do lots of fun stuff. As a developer, you have sane markup. As a front-end developer, it's saner than most of the other solutions you listed, like panels or display suite or these other things. You can use existing content, so nodes, media, blocks, entities, or you can create new content inline just for that layout, or it can also be reusable. And it can conform to whatever grid or layout system you want. It's not something that is stuck with the CSS that comes with it. It can be completely customized pretty easily. And yeah, and now it's in core at 8.7, so it is considered stable and wonderful.
Yes, and for those of you who had tried Layout Builder previously, there is quite a bit difference from 8.6 to 8.7. And there have been other things. There used to be something called Layout, or I think it was just called Layouts, that was in Drupal core, and this is slightly different from that. But the latest thing is called Layout Builder, and that's what I'm here to demo. So I did this morning actually just like pull the latest version of Drupal, and I wanted to get you a sense of how this kind of thing actually works. So what you do then is, again, a vanilla site, this is not lullabot.com, you could go to your site, and actually I think one of the first things you would need to do is enable it. And you need to enable both these modules, Layout Builder and Layout Discovery. And once you've done that, and you have your usual tabs here on your content type, you can go to this tab called Manage Display. And once you've enabled the Layout Builder module, you get these options down on the bottom. So the way Layout Builder works is if you check this box, you can use Layout Builder for that particular content type. So I'm saying on an article, I want to be able to use Layout Builder to arrange my content on the page. And when you check that one box, this is how you would use it to arrange things on the page that would be the same for all articles. If you then go down and check the second box, you can configure layout for each node. So in other words, you can have one article that looks one way and another article that looks another way. And this is the way that we have been using Layout Builder on client projects at lullabot.com, and it's worked out quite well. But I want to make sure that distinction is clear. So those are the two boxes that you can check. If you want to do it on all articles, just check the top box. If you want to do any article and just get all crazy with it, then you check both boxes. Now, I do say kind of get crazy with it because once you have like one article and then you have another article that looks slightly different, you start to get, you can have all kinds of variations and all kinds of craziness that could make things more difficult for you in the future in terms of like doing a data migration. I do lots of data migrating, and I'm sure the data migration, the whole migrating from Layout Builder, if you ever have to do that someday, I'm sure that process is going to continue to evolve. But I'm just going to say that this tool is designed with users in mind. It's designed to make things easier. So what does that mean then? So on lullabot.com, we have a content type called landing page. And we have checked both the boxes, as we say. So this is my local version of it. And now by checking both those boxes, I get this tab here that's called layout. So this is the kind of meta thing where I'm talking about how we built this site and the site that we built using the site that we built and demonstrating it. So what we can do then is there's two different concepts when you're using Layout Builder: sections and blocks. And those are kind of the fundamentals to how Layout Builder works. So if I wanted to say, let's add something above this particular image, on our site, the way we have it configured, you click that button and then this stuff pops over on the side. And this is where you can choose your own particular layouts. Here we've customized some things. And I could say I want to do a 2-column layout, and I want to use this particular section, and I want to say, I'm going to add some neat stuff because I'm a content editor and I have good language. So we also have added this little thing, and I'll talk about all of this stuff. If I want to add a class to that, and I know, oh, this little heading line short thing gives little lines next to it, like, hey, let's do that. And then we've added a bunch of other things here where you can say, like, oh, I want to add some margin above it. Oh, I want to add 2 margins above it. I don't know exactly what that means, but again, this is supposed to be, we could actually clean this up some more, and we've talked about making the language better, but if you know just a little bit about how, websites work, these words will probably mean something. So like, oh, let's center this, or let's add these little lines, and I'm going to click add a section. So now I've added a section, and it says some neat stuff, and there are these little lines. I don't know if you can see those. Yeah, you can see those. So that's my section, and I chose 2 columns, so we have 2 blocks here. And this is, I could say I want to add a block here, and what we've done on our site is we have these 3 different regions. I didn't mean to click on that. No, I'm gonna get all confused because we have these 3 different regions. One is add content, then we have marketing blocks, which are custom blocks, and then we also have lists of things. Those are the kind of 3 main areas that we expect the content editors to use. But if I want to add a content item here, I can choose, I could choose my article that I just wrote a couple days ago. Go read it. Or Kathy's in the audience, so I could say I want to add a bio, and then I can choose a view mode for that one. So I could say I'm going to try promo square. I don't know how this is going to look. And there's Kathy. And it's all formatted. Hope that's all right, Kathy.
That's totally fine.
Okay. I did not clear that with her. I just saw it. I could also add a media item, and one of my cool charts. Oh, this one's got lots of color. I'm going to select that. So I just grabbed a media item and pulled that in. I have no idea what all of these things would do, but I'll be like, well, let's try default and see what happens here.
So those are all view modes on the entity that hopefully are all designed. I don't remember which ones we designed and which ones we didn't.
Yeah. Let's try promo.
Which is nice. As a front-end dev, I only have to worry about the view modes. I'm not worried about, special templates for this pane or something like that.
So what's really cool is I can kind of come in here and say, oh, that looks really weird, and then kind of come back and use these contextual links and try out different, I want this to be an admin thumbnail maybe, because I want it to be blurry. That's what I want. So I can then, I can kind of drag these things around too. So this is futuristic stuff if you've been working on Drupal for a while. Or if you haven't, this is cool. This is how this probably looks like how normal websites are built. Now, the interesting thing is I could go back to the home page, and now some of you are worried because what, did he lose all of his customizations? Well, no, I can actually come back here and my stuff is still there, but I can't see it. That's because I haven't saved it. So then I would go back to my layout, and it saved my changes for me, hopefully. Yep, there it is. And now, okay, yep, I am on my local site. I didn't just change lullabot.com. And there it is. I just added this section. I added some neat blocks. So that's the gist of how this stuff is working. So the way we have done this is no, it wasn't me. The way we have it set up on our site is we have these different sort of custom blocks that you can do, like one-off, I think the term is like non-global, non-reusable custom blocks that have, these would have like different fields. So for example, we could do a call to action block, and that has these classes and that kind of thing. We could do a text block, and those would have just the body and a CSS class. For reference, if you go to manage display on this one, notice, I could enable layout builder on my blocks, but no, I mean, that's not how we want to use this in this case. Like we've unchecked that here, but the point is layout builder gives you a great deal of flexibility for how you set up your site, which I think is pretty cool. So those custom blocks are also available when I go back to my page and I think, oh my gosh, why did I choose a blurry media item? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to come back and I could remove this block, and then I could come in and say instead I'm going to add another block, and this one's going to be a text block. And this thing that's popping up, some of you may be wondering about, this is Entity Browser, and we're using this thing called Entity Browser Block, and we're using these things together to say, here's my text, and this is not very, oh wait, this is very fun. And there, I have to choose the default, and you don't really have classes for this text block, and I can add that, and then this says this is very fun. So anyway, you get the idea. That's the gist. That's the sort of demo, and I think I've covered most of that. And I mentioned that one, and I've been on that page. Okay. Did you have some more that you wanted to add now? Or
I can do a little bit.
Okay.
So one thing that was kind of interesting, there's a lot of, I don't know if this has changed since it's gotten, since 8.7. There were actually a lot of fixes. We did this talk at DrupalCon and got to talk to the Layout Builder Initiative folks, and they were excited to see what we had and discuss like what we thought might work better and how we were using it and all that. So a lot has changed, but it was interesting that the admin, as you notice, is not in the admin theme, which created some problems for us. There was a good deal of styling that we had to do, especially since we didn't use, what's it called? Classy as our default, as our base theme, which might have given us more quality of life kind of stuff. But so we created, these button styles. We made sure they stuck to the top. There are a lot of other little things like the contextual links at the time before it was stable, were a little goofy. So there was a good deal of work just to get this to look right. So I would say for what we did, this took more development effort than, say, paragraphs, but it's, I would say, more performant, and also like the markup was saner. And it's more flexible, easily more flexible than paragraphs. If you're going into this, you think, oh yeah, I can set up a new site on this. It'll take me like a week or something. Plan on spending a good deal of time working on the admin and working on making sure you have the right layouts or stuff like that. At least from our experience. But things are only going to get better and easier as more people start to use this. We contribute stuff back. And then we're going to, maybe have some people that have, start contributing their own layouts that you can just download and use that enable things like this. Yeah.
So now I want to just talk a little bit about some of the modules that Lullabot has contributed back, and some of the other modules that we used to go from making this more like the default Lullabot, or default, I'm sorry, the default out-of-the-box layout experience, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. So if I wanted to show you what you actually get out of the box with Drupal 7, if you go to your Manage Display, Drupal 8, and click Save. So once I've done this, and I go to my content, and out of the box, this is, I mean, Wes does, his job is to make things look good. A lot of this stuff, just works out of the box. So if I have that's a gallery, that's not a gallery, but we'll do a test article called gallery. And see, I get my layout tab, but out of the box, a lot of this stuff is still here. The section stuff, this is your default settings. We can still do, a column, there's column widths. So you can see that most of this stuff, in terms of the sections and the blocks, and then we still have like content and content fields. One of the things you'll notice is there's a whole bunch of other fields, and this is one of the things where Layout Builder gives you just so much flexibility that one of the things we had to do was restrict what you wanted to see, because there's just a lot of stuff that you don't always want to have available when you're working on a page. So for example, if you're building a landing page for a marketing site or a home page or an about page, you don't ever need to place a devel block if you have the devel module enabled. And there's a whole bunch of these on here too.
I would like to place what content type this is on the middle of my layout.
Yeah, maybe you do. I mean, I don't know. But so there's a couple of modules that have become, I would say, sort of like best practice kind of modules. So there's one that is primarily focused on the UI, and that's called Layout Builder Restrictions. Ooh, animated GIFs, or GIFs if you're into that. Where this is a module that will make it so you don't actually see all, you can restrict what the editor is seeing in their editor experience. But there's another issue that we ran into with lullabot.com, which has been around for quite a long time, which is that we ran into performance issues. And the person editing the page would open up a layout for a particular page, and then in behind the scenes, Drupal is going through all of our content types and all of the fields and making all of those available as blocks. And that was taking forever to load. I mean, like multiple seconds. I think it was, 20? I don't know. I heard like 20, 25 seconds sometimes just for things to load up. And that's on a site, if you have a lot of content on your site. That's not how it's going to happen, obviously, right away, Drupal out of the box. But someone from Lullabot, our CTO, Karen S., who you may know, who created the date module and calendar module and has been a maintainer of CCK, and I learn a lot from. She contributed back this block blacklist module, which you would use for performance improvements. Now, block blacklist is slightly different from block restrictions, or layout builder restrictions, in that builder restrictions is focused on the UI. Block blacklist is focused on performance, and it also affects the UI. But these are two things that you can kind of use in conjunction with each other. And once we eliminated a lot of the blocks that were loading, the editor experience was significantly faster using this block blacklist module. So that, I think we actually have a slide for. Maybe I should do the slides first. Getting ahead of myself. Block for better system performance. So on the left there, you can see that we have, like a list of, I mentioned the devel module, the block blacklist lets you sort of configure these ones we don't necessarily need to see, probably won't ever use on a marketing page, an about page, or that kind of thing. I mentioned a little bit about the taxonomy as well, the classes that we've added. This is a customization where what we did was a little bit of custom code, but we use the taxonomy to create our own classes. And I can just, again, show this.
Those are all the utility classes that we have from our theme. The idea was eventually that it would say something human-friendly, like, I want this to look like a Lullabot breaker, or something maybe more specific. It might add multiple classes. So the taxonomy name would be something that Ellie would be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is, and not like U margin bottom 3 or whatever. But yeah, so far the class name and then the taxonomy name and the classes that it applies are right now identical. But the long-term idea was that it would be something that would be a lot more useful.
Yeah, right now, and this was like the easiest, quickest thing to do when I was building a site recently for a client where it's just, the name and the class name were just the same for development before we'd kind of settle on what the client wanted. But once you sort of get this thing working, you could add a better description. So somebody who doesn't maybe know as much, we could sort of auto-generate like documentation for how the classes work by adding descriptions in our taxonomy, and then just create a view that has information about each of the classes that you could sort of consult or you could link to or something like that. So I think you get the idea of how that works. But what that allows us then is, I think this is kind of a common use case that I've encountered with quite a few sites, is where people, they want some flexibility. And if you're a developer, you're thinking, well, not too much flexibility. So Layout Builder has been great, where we can say, like, I'm working with a company that has tons of editors right now, tons of content authors. And if they know a little bit, and we can give them, like, here's a whole bunch of stuff, and it looks like, and you can, like, drag and drop this and put things all over and kind of go crazy. But still, we're restricting them to a certain sense because we're creating these classes, and they have a limited drop-down list. So we're still sort of exercising control in a different way. So another module that I wanted to mention is called Layout Builder Library, where if you want to maybe restrict a little bit more to like a few different sort of templates, this module happens to be maintained by 2 Drupal core committers and Tim Plunkett, who's like one of the primary authors of the Layout Builder initiative. So this one is another sort of best practice, shall we say, or probably likely to become a best practice. That's one of the things you have to do a lot in Drupal, especially if you're beginners, trying to figure out, like, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And one way to determine if a module might be good is if you see people that are core committers that are contributing to it. But anyway, the Layout Builder Library module allows you to give some like predefined layouts. And actually, early on, when we were working on the Lullabot site, we had defined some of these. I think it was for the case study. So it's kind of a big, like, crazy thing that we have where if you, let's see, I'll just click on add a block. You can always add a block under another block. No, I need to add a section. We have this case study landing. So this is that kind of idea where you would configure some predetermined big fancy thing, and you could use this Layout Builder library module to do the same kind of thing. And this is this could be useful if you want to make it so the content authors or the person creating those pages can't go too crazy. So there is a pretty good list of other modules. You don't have to take my word for it. There's in the Drupal documentation, a number of the modules that I talked about here are listed in terms of what I think are becoming sort of emerging best practices. That phrase always sounds weird. Emerging ways that lots of people do, so it makes it easier for me to do it because other people are doing it that way, and I can ask them questions if it breaks, kind of things. So Paragraph blocks is another one that's interesting too. So if you are used to the paragraphs paradigm, you can use paragraphs with Layout Builder, and those can be used together. I don't want to get too much into the technical details about that, but I just wanted to mention that that's possible. I also wanted to mention that there are a few gotchas with Layout Builder in terms of things that can cause some problems. One right now is using Layout Builder with node revisions. So in other words, if you think that you want to have like a history of all of the changes you've made to your crazy landing page, and you're saving all of those, your database table can quickly become really large. And a lot of people are kind of working on it. This is a problem that affects paragraphs as well as Layout Builder right now. What I found and what I've been like recommending to people is just, do you really need revisions on these? And most of the instances, they say no. Now, maybe I would say also too that the way you use this, is going to dictate how you need to use your revisions. So for something like an article, I would say don't use a layout builder that lets you don't use Layout Builder on your content types. Have nice, good, structured content types for most of your content, and then maybe for like a landing page or other pages that need to change or need to look flashy or need to be whatever buzzword you use. I've heard all kinds of different, like micro sites or pop-up, I don't know, all those types of things. Whatever sort of, I'm going to go have someone come and check out this new thing that we're offering. Those kinds of pages are great for Layout Builder, where they're kind of like one-offs, and you can give that control to the people that want to, promote something.
Yeah. So while we don't necessarily recommend that you create every template in Layout Builder, every like content type view mode, it's definitely possible. We've just found it that we use Layout Builder like you would paragraphs, or maybe like custom panels, where you just enable it, like you said, for one content type, and that way, for me as a themer, a template's just much more knowable. It's just like, okay, I know exactly what's happening here. I can make sure that they're bowling with bumpers. They're not gonna get too many gutter balls. Things aren't going to explode. I can control this. I can see the revision, the git, all that fun stuff. And then here's where you can go wild. Like here's your one thing or two things. But if you don't have a themer on your project, or you feel limited somehow, and you feel like you prefer to use Layout Builder for all of your view modes and content types, there's nothing like objectively wrong with it. It's just something that we don't prefer and would like to avoid.
Yeah. Yes, the front-end developers seem quite pleased with Layout Builder, in part because it's sort of the changes happen on the front end. It's sort of a user-focused tool that makes it easier for front end as well as just use. I mentioned the entity browser and entity browser block. Those are other modules that we found to be quite useful. So when you have, when you're on your layout and you want something to, where's my site? There it is. You want something that you want to put something on your site, and I need to have a section. No, I need a block. I always forget if I need a block or a section, because I don't actually click on this all that much.
So sections are kind of like regions, if you think of block regions, but you also have your layout also defines regions. So it's kind of it's an interesting paradigm. It has maybe one more layer than I was used to, but the templates are all very same. Overriding it was nice and easy because Drupal 8 theming is overall nice and easy.
Yeah, so when I click Add Content here, this is something that I've that is configured in that entity browser block combination. I use those two. So for example, in this same window, I'm popping open a modal. I'm giving the person the ability to add content here, and I've chosen to add this add quote thing, but also select from a library. So this is where I could say, I only want to see, articles from this is something that you could configure to your heart's content. So people are only seeing what they want. I would also mention that we are using Entity Browser block for media as well, but in Drupal 8.7, I believe the media library is now available. I think it's still, is it unstable? I can't remember. But I know you can use the media library as well to do the same kind of thing. So some of this functionality is coming in core, and I know there's people that are working on it, and that the bugs aren't all worked out, but media is in core. So this whole notion of how do you select what you want to put in those things is something that you as a developer, as the person architecting the site will need to figure out, and I'll just say that those are a couple of options, whereas Entity Browser seems like that's going to be the way that you're going to want to go to select content, and those end up just looking like views that you configure, and I don't want to do that right now because I want to leave time for questions, unless you wanted to add more. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions, and I'm throwing a lot at you, but let them rip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question about the gray area where you can configure and add blocks and sections. Mine has been stuck for many Drupal versions in this overlay version where yours looks pretty slick. It's on the right-hand side. Is there a setting for that, or is it a particular theme, or is that code you wrote?
No.
Mine's like a modal overlay that I can't make go away.
There's a module, I think, that
Core module called sidebar
which is a modal. So maybe you have that one. Not sure.
Yeah, I think that we didn't have too many problems with the sidebar.
It's always been a sidebar. Oh, so that's not custom Lullaby stuff.
There's
No.
maybe a core module called like a settings tray or something.
Right.
like
Yeah, I
that.
think
Yeah.
that's its name. The settings tray.
I mean, there was overlay in Drupal 7.
No, yeah, I can show you later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to, with my test article out of the box, that side,
Okay.
I'm going to call it the side poppy any thingy. That's how it works by default.
Even in the 7 themes,
Or
Yeah.
this one's Bardic, but yeah. Yeah, and your theme could accidentally be interfering with this, because it's all in one scope.
Yeah. So it's that. The short answer to your question is, by default, this is how it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing a little bit more about how you guys are using the layout builder library module, like with your case study. Could you show us like what that actually looks like?
I don't believe we're actually using that module. I just added that in here now. And I should say that the case study thing was something that we ultimately decided we didn't really need, because we found that the person that was creating case studies might want those to be a little bit different, and maybe having that template wasn't exactly helpful. And I think the way the theming was set up, it was fine, and to just give, just allow them to make that a flexible type of display.
Yeah, the case study thing was more like the way you would think of old school, Drupal layout, where it just had a bunch of predefined regions and a very specific layout, and we just figured out that we don't really need to do that anymore, do we? But it's still around.
Would that in that case just a custom layout? Right?
Yeah, right. It's a very
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this matches the design that I have that has all these different bits and bobs.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the things that we did on lullabot.com, our goal all along was, and this is often my goal, is to use as little custom code as possible. And for the most part on this project, that was a success. The modules that we contributed back, sort of as a company, were another one I didn't mention called Views Layout, which allows you to integrate views into your
Or
your layout?
you can make a display that uses Layout Builder, I believe. It's another one we made and thought we'd use and then didn't. But it's available.
Yeah. Incidentally, this other one, Quick Link, super speeds up your website. I would say check that one out too. But that's nothing to do with Layout Builder. It's just a cool module. But almost all of the code that we've used to create this thing, besides the theme, was core contributed modules, and then we built some contributed modules, and the only real custom module, the custom code that we had to write was for the data migration, which was crazy, going from a decoupled back to Drupal, as well as defining a few of the layouts in code, and sort of overriding the defaults. But
and the taxonomy class thing, that was custom.
and the taxonomy class thing.
Yeah, and for the theme, we did everything custom. We used nothing. We used nothing in core because our themers were all snobs, and we're like, we don't want to write all the markup and CSS ourselves. So, yeah.
For this site or any others where you used Layout Builder, was there an external style guide that you were lining up that custom markup with?
For Lullabot.com, no, because we don't have that much spare time. But
Yeah.
but we generally do something like that. It's and there's definitely a README that says these are this is how you write code. These are kind of the general classes and layout systems we're using. But I don't know if your project had anything like that.
Yes, we do. I actually know a little about it because I'm often like migration and world and custom code, but we're using, I know there's a style guide and we're using Pattern Lab, and I know it's all this working together great because they all just seem happy as can be, and I think the way it's set up, the style guide is dictating all of this custom stuff, and it just all works, with the different display modes. It works well.
Contextual filters work with this for views and blocks and things? Like if you wanted to have a related articles
We had
or something?
we had a few hiccups on Lullabot.com, and that was again Layout Builder early days. It might be fixed now, but it does work. I don't know if you had better luck with that.
Yeah, that all works great. We ran into one scenario where where the person editing, our marketing director was editing the content and wanted to remove a block, but the way we had set up our contextual filters, she actually she had an episode, a podcast episode in a block, and she was able to delete the podcast rather than just remove the block. So we have run into some gotchas like that where you have to make sure that that contextual. I think that's fixed now, but I know that was one where the contextual filter it was a little confusing, and I know it can be kind of confusing, even to me when I'm like clicking around on here and I'm thinking, oh wait, I'm not actually going to delete that thing, but it looks like you are. You're just removing, you're just going to go in and remove that block. So I'll say that. Does that answer your question?
Sure, yeah.
Can you talk about some of the differences in layout builders between 8.5 and 8.7? What changed?
Oh yeah.
So between 8.5 and 8.6, there weren't many changes. Between 8.6 and 8.7, there were a lot of changes. Some of that was related to how the contextual links worked. A lot of it was kind of like API-y stuff, and I think most of the changes were like improvements to how the editor experience worked and performance things, and more, maybe more details than I want to get into in supposedly a beginner session, but it was mostly like improvements that have made just the editor process work better in general, like UX kind of improvements and API improvements.
On that same note, I'm curious on your thoughts on the analyzer and comparing it, the differences, if you have experience with that in the past. Is it a stability thing, or has the interface added more features, or?
So Layout Builder versus panelizer.
Mm-hmm.
from a front-end builder perspective, I thought the templating layers made more sense to me. It was easy. I used that on Drupal 7 though, so I don't know if it's gotten better in Drupal 8. But yeah, everything was just a lot easier to track down and understand, and making all the layouts conform to our custom CSS grid implementation was all very simple. And I would say, in my experience, the UI here, after we did the improvements of like kind of trimming some things, whatever, was just orders of magnitude better in my opinion. That because you can do a ton with Panelizer, but the UI is just the learning curve is not good.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming.